Welcome to Data Break by 55, the podcast where we break down the complexities of today's global marketing industry. I'm your host, Nancy Edwards, marketing lead here at 55, and your go-to wrangler for expert insights on marketing and data analytics from around the globe. Each month, we invite experts in the marketing space to join us for a deep dive into the technical solutions that are shaping the future of both businesses and marketers. With topics ranging from advanced measurement to generative AI, our podcast covers the latest insights and trends in the marketing industry. So sit back, relax, and take a break with us as we dive in. I've got Robin Clayton, who is a managing director, and Christy Ray Harrison, who is an executive director, both at 55 US. They are perfect to talk about this topic of data transformation because they have tons of experience in helping global brands transform their businesses through the use of data, technology, and more. And I'm really excited for you to hear how they've done that. So before we jump in, Robin, I will let you kick us off by sharing a little bit more about your background for our audience.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for having us. Really excited to talk to you about data transformation today. I'm Robin Clayton, Managing Director here at 55 US. I've been in consulting probably for 15-ish years at this point, always helping clients transform their business. I've worn a lot of different hats over the last 15-ish years, everything from technical analyst, writing requirements, working with mixed offshore and client teams. A lot of it starting with project delivery, systems integration, helping define how and why we should be implementing commerce and marketing solutions, and then helping with the implementations themselves, all the way up through driving large scale digital transformation programs, strategy programs, roadmaps, you name it, and helping define what those projects should be and in what sequence with our clients. Now, I have a really hyper focus on helping clients transform primarily their marketing and analytics functions using all the various types of client data out there across all the various channels today. And what's most amazing to me is how the only constant I've noticed is that transformation is a constant and change is a constant.
And hi, Nancy. I'm Christy Ray Harrison. I'm an executive director at 55 US, based in New York, alongside Robin here. And I've been working in strategic consulting for the last 10 plus years. Originally was focused more on the consumer insights side of the house and thinking through why people buy what they buy, how to increase consumer engagement between brands and their customers, and how to personalize brand customer interactions to be closer to a one-to-one basis. And now at 55, for the last several years, I've been helping clients think through the right tools and technology to actually enable those one-to-one personalized interactions. So I work with the team here to not only stand up the right tools and tech, but also train and equip our clients to take advantage of the right tools and technology that we set up for them, and partner with them through change management and governance and ensuring the quality of their data to make it useful and actionable for them.
Thank you both for those great introductions. Now, let's dive into today's topic. So, we've all inevitably heard the term data transformation, but what does this really mean for marketers? Anyone who's tried to transform anything probably knows too well that such initiatives often expand beyond the original department. So, today we're going to break down what exactly data transformation means, how you can get the buy in of cross functional teams, and more. Robin, can you kick us off by defining what data transformation means and why do you think it is so significant for organizations?
Happy to. Change on its own can be chaos and it can be really, really hard. The way I think about transformation is it's the art and science of mastering that change in order to drive toward more targeted and incremental growth and very specific outcomes. Today's world is increasingly data driven, obviously, and that's exponentially increasing. It's a magnitude of variables on top of variables, proliferation of touch points up and down the full consumer journey, the full purchase cycle, and it makes it really, really difficult to execute scalable transformation if you don't focus on where you're going and set your objectives appropriately. So brands win by having access to the right data at the right time to make the right confident and timely decisions. And data transformation is imperative for businesses who want to harness that ability to connect the data dots in an accurate, meaningful way. It's really hard to do, and you need to be able to do it in a way that's flexible enough to evolve and adapt. And then as another huge part of transformation and mastering the change, you have to focus on the change management, ownership, and governance required to make the transformation happen successfully. So you can have the best plan ever, but if you don't manage the adoption, you don't manage the upskilling, and you don't successfully get people inspired to adopt the new pieces of change, it just isn't going to go very far.
Awesome. Thanks. I love what you said about change management. I know just working with you both that can always be a huge challenge. And I'm interested to know, what other challenges do you see organizations commonly facing when implementing data transformation initiatives, and how can they overcome these challenges? Christy Ray, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one thing we see a lot when we're working with larger clients and larger organizations is that there's often just a hesitancy to change and a hesitancy to adopt new ways of doing things. And that's sometimes driven by not being able to see the value of adopting a more automated way of doing a process that was formerly very manual and Excel based. And when we're standing up more automated dashboards and tools and technology, that can be a significant change in just cultural adoption. And there can be a lack of awareness about how this change or how this new tool is going to impact and improve a given person's everyday job and really help them hit their business objectives. I think another challenge that some organizations face is just more on the communication side of things. It can be hard for, say, a marketer to really understand the tools and technicalities of a platform that's being implemented that could help them do their job better and reach more of the customers they want to reach more effectively, say with a CDP or a customer data platform. But if you're not able to speak to that marketer in ways that resonate with the work that they're doing and the goals that they and their team members have, it's going to be harder for them to be aware of the platform's benefits, much less adopt it and use it on an everyday basis. One of the things that can be really key in implementing a data transformation initiative is investing the time up front in the project in training and equipping and involving the various team members from across disciplines and functions to make sure they see the value of the transformation early on and that they're really bought in, and they know how this is going to impact them down the line.
I think one other challenge that I see a lot of clients have is expectation setting when you're embarking on a journey and you're trying to figure out how to prioritize which projects to take on or which use cases and how do you value them and how do you explain that to management and to the teams you're rolling them out to over time. So making sure that you clearly identify what can be measured, how soon you expect to see the payback, the magnitude of that. Some things require 3 years before you really see results, but you're going to see something big. So some are really quick pilots that you can put in market, but maybe they aren't large enough to really move the needle, even though the results are staggering. So you need to have the right balance and the right plan to weave these together. So the threshold for change and the expectation around that is in line with your leadership and your shareholders and your team's expectations around performance.
I think data transformation is definitely something that every business is working really hard to do and bring in-house. And it's really cool to hear about the organizations that have done it well. So I'd love to hear from both of you some real-world examples on how you've seen data transformation really shape organizations from their core.
Some of our recent work with one of our clients at Fire. And what we did was we used marketing data and new cloud and generative AI capabilities. We layered together media, creative, and audience data in an effort to identify what's working and what's not working in creative assets in real time. So, for example, being able to use AI to immediately parse a creative image. What's in the background? Where's the logo? Is the parent company logo and the specific brand in the picture? Is there a dog? Is the dog wearing a bow tie, a handkerchief? What's happening in this picture? So categorize all the components and label them and prioritize or report on which are working and which aren't in a real-time, transparent way so that everyone can see what is and what isn't working and learn from that. And one reason it's really key in this example is because historically, probably since the 90s or so, you've as a brand, had to go and brief media and creative agencies separately in order to do one thing, which is reach your consumer. What this does is help drive convergence between those two separate parties and teams and data points, really, so that you're able to make better decisions across those different agencies and across different cross-functional teams. If you've ever been that one person that has to figure out what the insights are, articulate them in a very concise way, and then convince a room full of different partners, agencies, clients, teams act quickly, you know it's pretty difficult. So by showing this kind of really powerful new capability, and also, by the way, showing that, for example, hey, we could drive a 62% increase in interaction with the ad, which is pretty phenomenal. You get a lot of quick action and quick agreement.
You mentioned how it used to be, where you had your media being briefed and your creative teams being briefed. So I'm sure it's a big shift to move towards a more combined workflow. And when we think about data transformation, scalability is a big piece of that. Was this a scalable project?
It was scaled. I would say yes, absolutely. But generally, projects don't start with all markets and all teams. So it's one thing to deliver a pilot in market, and it's another to take that pilot and scale it across your different teams, brands, markets. So the pilot itself can be really shiny and new and exciting, but you really start seeing the impact when it's adopted throughout the organization. And this definitely happened. And I think part of it is the transparency and democratization into the data, into the results, into the reports, dashboards. It really empowered the different teams to get excited and inspired and ultimately approach to marketing.
Awesome. Ray, I know that you've also worked on an account that had a lot of driving global consistency, global transparency. Can you talk a little bit more about that project?
Yeah, we've been partnering with one of our clients, Shiseido, global CPG and cosmetics retailer, for many years, and they partnered with 55 originally to help stand up a data and analytics infrastructure and kind of privacy-proof frameworks across the globe for their various properties and sites across a number of different brands that they own, especially their prestige beauty brands. So our team was responsible for setting up the right tools and technology to ensure they have a privacy-proof infrastructure for their web analytics. But then what was really key to the success of that transformation project was setting up a global digital center of excellence, or a kind of digital hub at the center of it all, that was responsible for ensuring that we were using consistent KPI frameworks across regions and brands, consistent tools and infrastructures dependent on the market and the different privacy regulations and kind of capabilities at play. And then also just ensuring that there were consistent communications across the teams and brands. So when you talk about something like data transformation, you're going to need to enable kind of the change acceleration process in a consistent manner, but also in a way that's customized and tailored to the different brands and teams and disciplines and functions that are involved in actually bringing a data transformation project to life and making use of any new tools and technology that come along with it. So Shiseido has been a great example of that and have been a really fun team to partner with globally. And we've been able to tap into some of our offices in Paris and APAC and the UK, and really ensure that we're able to drive unified perspectives on how the changing privacy landscape might influence the tech infrastructure that a given brand or client or portfolio brands has set up, and then roll that out in a way that's consistent and in line with the given markets that it's impacting.
It's so cool to hear about all that you've done for brands all over the world. I'm curious, though, if you had to distill it down into 1 to 2, maybe 3 things, what would you say are the key components of a successful data transformation strategy?
Success in a data transformation strategy starts with upfront expectation setting, having a clear end game, and understanding that your path to get there is going to change. So you start with something on day 1, and it might have shifted a little bit by day 2. And it's being able to understand that and still work within a framework so that you know exactly where you need to go in terms of objectives and success and what your clear vision is. It's also helpful if you have a sponsor and a preset transformation plan, especially for organizations with more layers. People need to know what's expected of them, what they can be excited for, how they fit in. So you have the right top-down vision and leadership. You're also listening from the bottoms up, making sure you're hearing your people when they have subject matter expertise that you don't. They're closer to a lot of the problems and a lot of the change that's going to be happening. So if you're not listening from the bottoms up, you're missing a lot of opportunities and you will have more bumps in the road. I would say a top down and bottoms up strategy combined with a clear vision and end game and the flexibility and governance to be able to alter course as you need to and continue steering the ship.
Yeah, and just to add on to the bottoms up and top down approach, getting those power users and stakeholders involved early on in the journey is really important, and to ensure that you're listening to their needs, listening to their potential use cases, trying to understand what are the potential ways that these new data sources or tools and tech are actually going to be brought to life. Just ensuring that you're taking a use case driven approach and building something together that's going to be usable and actionable by the end users who should become your power users.
I might even add on to that. As you're talking with these power users and you're looking at your teams and the projects on your roadmap, you need to make sure that the transformation aligns with your vision, but you also need to make sure that your teams understand how they connect to that broader vision. So I think Christy Ray's point about transparency really, really critical.
Absolutely. Yeah, transparency. I liked your point of understanding, that things will change. In that vein, you're driving this very, ambiguous train. So how do you ensure that it aligns with the business objectives and supports the overall growth and competitiveness of the enterprise?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge. And I think something that we've done to address that with clients we've worked with is to really over index on the discovery phase of a transformation journey and to do a lot more listening than you think you're going to need to do. Come in with kind of an open mind and sit down face to face or virtually with the people who are going to become the power users of the tools you're standing up as a part of the data transformation journey and listen to their needs, their wants, their what they cannot do today but wish they could do, and then weave in that feedback and those use cases. Everything you hear in that kind of discovery phase of the project is going to be crucial to building something together that's going to be actionable. And then the other piece of it is too that you can get very granular in these kind of discovery interviews and use case driven approaches, but you also want to find a North Star, kind of a guiding principle that you can unite teams and stakeholders from different functions and disciplines around. Something that we like to do at the start of these kinds of journeys and projects is to think through what are the core pillars that we want to adhere to, what are the guiding principles, what's even like one North Star or kind of core business objective that we want to strive for. And then how are we going to measure success against that? Because if you're striving for something where you're not going to be able to measure the impact, that's going to be hard to garner kind of awareness and support and adoption of the project.
Let's talk a little bit about the data part of data transformation. What do you see when we're bringing all these stakeholders to the table? What would you say is one of the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to this data component of driving organizational change?
I'm just going to take it in the first direction, which comes to mind, which is there are so many different types of data and data sources out there. And how do you figure out how to prioritize which ones you bring on first, which ones are the most relevant? Or you could flip it. There are so many ways to enrich your customer data set or your first party data set. Who should be your enrichment partners? Where along the way do you add that part in to your process? How do you orchestrate all these things? So it can get complicated really fast. And there is a never ending list, and I think it keeps growing and growing, of partners you can choose and new tools and technologies coming out on what seems like a daily basis. So I think it's not getting overwhelmed and not losing sight of what your priorities are. Maybe it's okay not to take all of the different sources and throw them into Snowflake or somewhere else right away. Maybe you do it incrementally over time, but it's a use case based approach. And you let the use cases drive which data sources you bring on first or which partners you bring in.
And the other aspect to it is that it's often beneficial to start with kind of a test and learn approach. So take some of those use cases that have been prioritized to Robin's point, think through how you might pilot those or build sort of a lighter proof of concept, test out the value of those data sources and the new tools that you've stood up. Have more of a fail fast mindset where you can incorporate a data source, activate on it, leverage those insights for some specific use case and purpose in a measurable way, and then look at the insights and the results of that pilot or that test and see if it's actually worth scaling out to additional data sources or additional activation channels or additional teams across your organization.
I think something I see is it can be really easy to get stuck in a test and learn rabbit hole where you're testing, 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 and experimenting. You're doing all these things and it's great, but you can get lost in it really quickly and it become very difficult to prove the impact of what you've done and why you've invested and then tie it back to your broader goals.
Yeah, it might be easy to get stuck in a rabbit hole where you're testing and learning with just one brand in a portfolio of brands, but hesitant to scale it out to the rest. And that's where it might be important to set up a testing approach and a roadmap where you're going to test with one brand, then you're going to scale to another brand in the same division of a similar type, and then scale it out to another division after that. And then if you're actually getting insights that the test is not effective and not having an impact on your bottom line and on the KPIs that you set up, you can pivot from there and go back to the drawing board and reorient your roadmap accordingly.
Talking about testing and talking about making sure that we're pulling in the data and really looking at the use cases and data, I think one overarching topic that we see a lot has to do with data security and privacy. Can you talk a little bit more about how to weave in this?
A lot you can do. Obviously, we can't give any legal advice, but you can definitely talk to subject matter experts. Privacy regulation, you can look at trends of what's happening in other places like California, in Europe, get an idea of what's coming so you're not surprised. A lot of organizations now will consult InfoSec and legal teams, even as early as procurement, just to start setting expectations up front. Whereas I think maybe they used to be a last stop once you got further down the line. Now I see them on stakeholder board as consulted throughout a project implementation, and I think that's really helpful. We've even done CDP implementations, customer data platform implementations, where as part of our acceptance testing, we had legal stakeholders from the legal team in there, making sure that rows and columns were only visible to certain employees who had those permissions and making sure that things were hashed. So we're actually getting legal teams involved in ways that we never did before, or privacy teams, just to make sure that everyone's involved in the process. So we have a diversity of stakeholders or diverse perspectives from different cross-functional teams.
Yeah, and sometimes those teams don't actually exist yet, or they're just nascent. A couple stakeholders who are have a passion for data governance or data privacy, but don't have a full team and set of resources around them to make that a reality. So that's where our team often likes to come alongside the data governance pods and teams that are within organizations and really help equip them with the latest thinking and subject matter expertise when it comes to data protection law, customer protection laws, data privacy regulations, not so much from a legal point of view, but more from a technical perspective around how you can set up the right alerting systems and tools and take advantage of internal and external sources of governance, user roles, permissioning, to Robin's point earlier, to ensure that every record is protected in the way that it needs to be protected. So there are a lot of automated ways that you can do that now, and it's just a matter of finding out and exploring what those might be and then tapping into those systems and tools that can help you be more proactive about your governance and data privacy standards than reactive.
Robin and Christy Ray, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
For hosting us, Nancy.
Before you leave, though, I've got to ask, do you have any tips to share to a marketer or advertiser who's looking to help their organization get started in data transformation?
I like Christy Ray's advice about listening. So I would go top down and bottom up. I would look at where the organization needs to go, maybe some of the challenges it's facing, and then I would get consensus or listen to other peers, and I would come up with a point of view that includes the perspectives of all of those different stakeholders, and I would start there.
Yeah, I agree. I think talking to people across the aisle, whether it's a physical aisle in your office or a virtual aisle, but talking to people from different functions and different disciplines who speak a different speak than you speak is critical to ensuring the success of a data transformation journey from the earliest days of it.
It's been so awesome being here with both of you. You guys offer such well-rounded expert advice. And I think our listeners will really want to know, what is one source that you guys use to get insights, or what is something that marketers today should be following who are interested in these topics and looking to keep up with expert insights like your own?
For me personally, I follow a lot of kind of pop psych books that you guys have probably all heard of and just try to think through and stay on top of the science of why people think the way that they do, because ultimately these data transformation journeys are about creating meaningful experiences for people and for real humans out there. So understanding kind of the science and the neuroscience of why we think how we do, why we buy what we buy, what channels we're on and where we're listening to brands and how we're engaging with brands. It's changing every moment, every day. Recently read Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow, which is pretty dense, so beware, but also a great read on just some of the kind of inner layers of how people think and what influences them and what creates meaningful experiences.
I do a lot of podcasting at 1.5 or 2 speed because I feel like if you're on a run, what better way to get your news download? I also do a lot of talking to people. I try to take time and listen to other people's experiences because I think there's a lot you can learn. You can start seeing patterns emerge the more you talk to people and listen to what's going on. So then I try to summarize those and bring them into how we operate and what we can do with clients.
Thank you so much, Christy Ray and Robin, for your time today. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you liked what you heard, do not forget to subscribe to Data Break anywhere you like to get your podcast, and be on the lookout for a new episode next month. You can also catch more insights from Robin and Christy Ray on our LinkedIn page. And we have a blog titled The Tea House, which offers a place to learn, ask questions, and browse the latest brand tech insights from 55ers around the world. Until our next data break, stay curious, stay data-driven, and continue exploring the world of marketing and data analytics.